So, Millet, you're so kind and you're sending me an Oculus Rift.
I am. I'm going to send you my Oculus Rift, my baby. You have to treat her with very kind hands.
I have to ask you one more favor. Could you say the station ID?
Of course, I would be glad to do that.
All right, here we go.
Hi, my name's Millet Fresky. I'm the founder of the Four Bridges Project and Second Life, and you are listening to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley.
Thank you, and the Oculus is in good hands. We will go out to the beach. I'll buy her ice cream. This Oculus, I shouldn't say that it will never come back.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Draxter Dupre. I'm here with Joe in 1920s Berlin. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
And the news just keep on coming. Last week, SL Go, Second Life is on mobile, and now apparently I hear you can check out Second Life with a little known ski goggle type thingy called Oculus Rift. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, you've heard about it.
Yeah, I do ski in the Alps, every once in a while.
Second Life has just announced that it's ready to start beta testing their viewer. Of course, the question is Second Life just in time or a bit too late with their viewer? Because Oculus Rift has just announced, just before we started recording this show, the Oculus Rift units are officially out of stock. So if you still want a development kit, you're too late.
Actually, a little bit later in the show, we'll talk with Yardley Linden, who is in charge over at Linden Lab, in charge of the Oculus Rift implementation. We have to do some housekeeping first, because we gave away a Leap Motion, and people wrote in as they were supposed to. And Leap Motion is, of course, this little tiny, small, neat gesture mapping device that you can also interface Second Life with. They're working on making it natively work with Second Life. We had a Facebook tie-in giveaway last week, and we have a winner. And I drew the winner with the help of my trusted assistant just before we started taping this show. All right, so in this bag are all the names of the people who have the right answer, had the right answer for the Leap Motion drawing. Please open the bag. Now, close your eyes and reach inside with one hand. There are pieces of paper with the names of the people who have the right answer. Pick one. They're all equal size. Okay, now unwrap this piece of paper and read the name out loud. Can you read my handwriting?
No.
All right, then I read it. Steve Slosser. Steve Slosser is the winner. Congratulations. The winner is indeed Steve Slosser.
Well done.
Send us an email with your address and we send the leap out right away. It would also be cool if you'd send us a snapshot using it. Now, this week we're giving away another Leap Motion to Second Life folks exclusively. You have to answer the question in world with sending an IM to us. The question is posted on the profile feed, my.secondlife.com/DraxFiles. All right? There you will see a snapshot of a cat-like avatar, a friend of Fluffy. And she was first seen in Fluffy on a Mesh in episode 3. The question is, what is her name? Don't post the name on the feed, but if you know it, just post that you know it and then send us an in-world IM, okay? If you have no idea who Fluffy is, well, there is some legwork to be done. You gotta work hard for your Leap Motion, right, Joe? You gotta Google the name maybe, or
go all the way to YouTube.
It is a very, very difficult proposition.
You may even have to click 3 or 4 times. Oh, the effort.
Oh my God. And then you have to email. Oh no, wait a minute. You have to do in-world IM. Good luck for the hardworking, sweating folks. Now on to the real news. Joe, you already mentioned the Oculus Rift integration into Second Life is ready for beta testers. We talk with Yardley Linden a little bit later, get more detail on this. We also have questions from the community that we will ask him. Briefly, the Second Life terms of service, which are still a contentious topic to say the least. There's a lot of complaining out there. We will talk to a well-known content creator next week, and he will speak from his perspective. He's a critical voice, but thankfully he's also measured, which is good. It's better than screaming. I think nobody out there really believes that what has been suggested by some critics that Linden Lab wants to grab and monetize all our creations. But nonetheless, the terms of service language is confusing and possibly too vague. Ebbe Altberg, CEO of Linden Lab, has acknowledged, though, that the language is bad and will be revisited, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it is such a complicated thing. And I still think that 90% of the issue is really the kind of language that is being used and not really what they're saying, if that makes any sense. It's how they say it, how they try and make these new rules. They are so open to misconception and they are so confusing that, it's lawyers talking. And who understands lawyers?
I've been married to a lawyer for 12 years.
I rest my case.
Again, it's also time, I think, to remind folks that Linden Lab, and this is not an excuse at all, is not alone with very restrictive terms of service. There's an excellent documentary out there that everyone should watch. It's called Terms and Conditions May Apply. Here's a little excerpt from the movie. They're playing an excerpt of a South Park episode, which is very funny. And then later you hear an Apple computer representative questioned in Congress.
You guys! You gotta help me. These business casual G-men are trying to kidnap me. What? It's crazy, dude. They're saying it's because I agreed to the latest terms and conditions on iTunes. Why? What did the terms and conditions for the last update say? I don't know. I didn't read them. You didn't read them? Who the hell reads that entire thing every time it pops up? I do.
Can you tell, can Apple tell how many people actually read it?
Well, they have to say that they agree. We can't know for sure if they've read. We try to make it in plain English and very short.
If I were trying to make a user agreement uninviting, I would choose a small font, a sans serif font, and I would set it in all caps. Okay. Because what happens then is that you have type that becomes a texture rather than words and spaces.
So this is from the movie Terms and Conditions May Apply. The last soundbite was Brian Lawler, a typographer. Very interesting movie. And of course, talking about intellectual property, we are scheduling with Emily Short, and we'll have her on the podcast to talk about Versu, which was a product developed at Linden Lab under her guidance. Interactive fiction where you can read a novel and depending on your behavior in the novel, your choices, you can change the outcome and the relationship with the other characters, the fictional characters in the novel changes. And we're looking forward to having Emily Short on. If you want to share your opinion about Versu or intellectual property or the toss, leave us a voicemail on Skype, Drax Files. Joe, the Jira is open again. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, of course. It is a way for users to communicate with Linden Lab in a better way than tickets. It is a way for us to share our suggestions, to see if other people have the same issues and, if we're the only ones. For instance, I've been waiting for such a long time for Linden Lab to allow us to set 24-hour day cycles.
What does that mean?
For instance, I have to go to every single one of my regions twice a day to turn the sun on and off, just to give the people who visit the illusion of being in a Second Life Berlin that has the same time of day as real life Berlin. And, Second Life is where everything is possible. It's your imagination.
Except for the right time.
Except for setting the time of day. That is just a personal thing that I'm having, and I'm really glad that I can go back to that ticket on Jira and at least vote for it and share my agreement on the issue.
There's no doubt that Ebbe reopened the Jira just because so you don't bother him on Twitter anymore. I mean, that's pretty clear.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
By the way, as some know that the time change here in the US caused some problems, and Second Lifetime, I think for a day was off for an hour. It didn't switch, so that's funny. So even on their end, there are problems with the sun. Anyway, moving on. Valve's prototype VR room, Joe. I that was already in January, but I missed this. Valve has created a virtual reality room, and there's QR codes all over the wall, and a fellow by the name of Lee Vermeulen blogged about this. I just want to quote from this post. He says, "There was a sense of presence with the technology that I didn't think was possible, at least for decades. It's possible my brain was more easily tricked than others, but looking back, my memories of being in the VR room are like I was actually there." And then he goes on to say, "I have no doubt VR rooms in houses will become a common thing in 5 years." And then on a cautionary note, with this sense of presence, it literally puts you in the environment. I worry that will cause us to not understand the difference between reality and the virtual world.
Oh, absolutely. When I was obsessed with playing Tetris, I was actually seeing blocks falling down in the street while I was shopping as a young girl. But, although it is very impressive, I don't see virtual reality rooms in houses. And I think that, perhaps we're just going to use regular rooms with those little codes hidden so that you can't see those ugly big white stickers all over your house.
Yeah, but I think that that's probably what's going to happen, that it's integrated in an existing room and the walls just disappear at will and the world just emerges from those walls. So it's fully integrated in a house. I think he's not suggesting that there would be an extra room like a garage.
Well, I don't think that's where we were going. You want to wear gloves and perhaps a headset and use a multi-directional treadmill. Because, if you're putting yourself in a real room, in a virtual reality room at the same time, you are giving yourself obstructions. You are taking away some of your freedom. While if you're standing on a multi-directional treadmill, you can walk for hours without bumping into anything. I mean, why would you lock yourself in a room?
No, that is a very good point. I always see this also combined. I mean, if it's just a static room, that is in fact pretty darn lame when we already have a multi-directional treadmill that combined with goggles create the illusion that we actually walk distances that are infinite. Yeah,
I would sooner see myself sitting on a swivel chair with some sensors stuck under my shoes so that when I tap on the floor, I'm walking.
Right. Then you don't actually have to walk either.
Exactly. So you can still be fat and lazy.
I see that Kickstarter coming from your end in a couple of months. Mentioning Philip Rosedale, he was at South by Southwest, the hipster tech meetup that we're not invited to in Austin, Texas, and he showcased his wife's brain in 3D. I'm quoting from an article here. During the demo, Rosedale wore a virtual reality headset through which he could explore his wife's brain in 3D as flashes of light displayed her brain activity from the EEG.
The most important thing that for me is that someone is looking at virtual reality here and they're not shouting games. This is someone saying, look at virtual reality. This is another way of using virtual reality. Besides this and the occasional architect writing about it, 99% of all the news about virtual reality is still game related, which is understandable, but, a bit silly.
Absolutely. I mean, this is research, by the way, done together with University of San Francisco. The other fellow's name is escaping me. Adam Gazzaley here. I wrote it down from the University of California in San Francisco. And what is really exciting, if we can actually look into people's minds for healthcare related applications, even mental health care issues. If you have a patient with locked-in syndrome or schizophrenic patients, and you can see, maybe visualize at some point in a very rudimentary form what they are actually thinking, and then starting a therapeutic approach from that information going forward.
Technically, a doctor could go inside a human body. You can walk around the brain, you can walk around the heart, you can be inside it. And that is a whole different way of looking at it. I mean, the most advanced technology we have now is EEGs and, rendering it 3D on a monitor and then looking around it and zooming in. But imagine as a doctor standing inside a heart.
We say it often, but these are exciting times. Philip, by the way, is going to speak at the Virtual World Best Practices for Education.
Ebba as well, right?
Ebba is also speaking, yeah. And we will broadcast both speeches, not live, but on the podcast. Also, just one more thing about South by Southwest. There was a VR video demoed with the Oculus where you could peek into a musician's room. So we're not talking about a recreation in virtual reality. We're actually talking about sort of peeking into somebody's room. And apparently there's no video on YouTube or anything, but apparently you were able to look around, I think just statically looking up and down, left and right, and then examining the room while that person was playing the piano and walking around and recording himself. I think it's highly fascinating what can be done. Also, when you talk about using this with filmmaking, it completely changes the paradigm of what films are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is the future. You're going to be able to, not just for drama, not just for film or television, but also, for education, you're going to be able to be inside another place that can have been, maybe they filmed it with a real camera.
I have no idea how they did that.
Well, I have something like that. I've seen something like that. The 360 degrees cinema, they've been experimenting with that a few times. And I found a few clips of that where they've just filmed a few occasions and even experimented with something live. Where they film something all around them and then you can be inside that film, which is extremely interesting. It's going to be fantastic for entertainment. I mean, you're going to be inside a movie. You're going to be inside Walter White's caravan, learning, how to make drugs and things like that.
Oh, fantastic! The real-world uses are manifold.
Yeah, but this is just the beginning. Imagine someone scanning the entire Anne Frank house and then allowing people all over the world to actually walk through it. A combination of real life and virtual reality. That would be fantastic.
I think that's the thing, because we always also forget augmented reality. I mean, I think down the line it will all merge, and all these, whatever the terminology is pretty secondary.
Oh, absolutely. We are still at the beginning for all of these technologies and all these possibilities, but they're going to be extremely exciting. And I think that in a couple of years, we're going to find it completely normal that we're going to be inside a movie or inside a television series. And, can you imagine watching a horror movie and suddenly having someone sneak up on you? Or getting in the middle of a firefight? That is going to give you an adrenaline kick like we've never had before, unless you've experienced something like that in real life.
We'll link to this article from South by Southwest with this live action video. It's just crazy. Again, if somebody finds a video, or somebody who was at South by Southwest and kind of snuck out some video, let us know.
But can you also imagine using this for communication? For instance, I've got family living in Australia and I've only seen them once and I love them dearly. But, a Skype call is as close as they get. And I can imagine working with something like this where they scan their room, their living room, and, I am in there with them. We are in the same room, even though they are on the other side of the planet. It's going to be fantastic.
But then again, we're talking about something recorded versus real time. Of course, then a real time type of holodeck with holographic projections, where augmented reality merges with virtual reality, would be even more attractive, I suppose.
Yes, or, it doesn't have to be that complicated. I can imagine 360 degrees webcams coming on the market pretty quickly. They can already give you a similar experience.
The World Wide Web was once called Mesh. I'm sure you didn't know this, Joe. 25 years ago,
I didn't know
25 years ago, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web. Not the internet, that was invented by Al Gore, as every right-winger in this country knows. There's quite a few interviews with him out there. I just want to play a little soundbite because it's so important what he has to say, the state of free expression on the internet today. Tim Berners-Lee is quoted as saying, now 25 years ago, web users are realizing they need human rights on the web. We need independence of the web for democracy. We need independence of the web to be able to support the press. We need independence of the web in general. It's becoming very important to sort all that out. Here's Tim Berners-Lee.
Also really important for democracy. If you are not connected to the internet, how is your voice going to be heard? How are you going to make sure that the values which you think are important are being represented by all the governments out there? It's 25 years on. We need to think about the next 25 years and make sure that we establish the principles that the web's being based on. Principles of openness, principles of privacy, principles of not being censored, for example.
In the same vein, there was a piece on CBS 60 Minutes examining data brokers. And lo and behold, libertarians don't believe this, but they may even be worse. Private data brokers may even be worse than spying governments when it comes to the impact this stuff has on our personal lives. Where do you stand on that, Joe? Who's worse, corporations or the government?
I think they managed to work together pretty well. They really do need to make some laws because, in a way, I read somewhere that someone said, what I put on the internet, my websites, my email, why don't they need a search warrant for that? I mean, it is a bit like your home. It's your possession. So if someone wants to snoop around in it, it's fine by me, but let them get, an official, warrant for it. Something like that.
Those are really the important issues of the day. We'll link to a bunch of articles and video clips. Bill Moyers interviewed Edward Snowden's lawyer, which I found a very interesting interview. We can't get too much into these things here on the podcast, but nonetheless, these are more important issues maybe than that your avatar didn't res at the arcade while you were shopping. Joe, we need to briefly talk about the first virtual reality talk show ever.
Thank you. Welcome to the first episode of RiftMax Live, where the guests are virtual and the labs are all simulated. It is a strange thing, though, to be standing up on this stage. I mean, it isn't real. And I'm not even standing up. You have no idea where I really am or what I'm really doing.
Oh, my God. And no, it was not in 2004 in Second Life. No, it was just last week. Basically, a bunch of folks from the Road to VR blog, or at least associated with it.
I love that blog.
I love it too. And by the way, Ben Lang is scheduled for tomorrow. So we'll tape a long interview with him. The Road to VR is a fabulous blog. But I do have to be a little critical with the claim the first virtual reality talk show ever. Yeah, there's a bunch of guys and they're interfacing with the Oculus into a talk show set, the typical talk show set with guests, a desk, and audience. So they have a bunch of virtual reality hardware on. Go ahead.
Yeah, they use the Razer Hydra.
You see talking heads and you see hands without arms. And they're having a talk show. When I pointed out that this has been done in Second Life, they say, yeah, but Second Life is not virtual reality. Second Life is a virtual world.
Yeah, that is a bit odd. I mean, maybe because they look at Second Life as being something that doesn't work with the headset yet. But regardless, Second Life is a virtual reality, no matter how you look at it, technically speaking, in every way possible.
I would even say it's the biggest interconnected virtual reality in existence right now, if you like it or not. It's certainly a little bit bigger than the replica of Jimmy Fallon's talk show set.
Well, and it's online, so anyone can join. And it is user created, so that makes it, of course, extremely interesting, or should make it very interesting for serious Oculus Rift users. I'm absolutely sure that what they've done here is quite impressive with the technology that they have. It is not the first virtual reality talk show, and to be very honest, I'm sorry, I love these guys, but I've seen Second Life shows that look a lot better, a lot smoother, better graphics. I mean, if Second Life has better graphics than you, there is a problem.
Yeah, but I think they acknowledged, they say they're at the beginning, but again, they distinguish between real virtual reality. Mm-hmm. How did they come to this distinction? Maybe they do think that with Second Life, you are in a walled garden, and here you are somehow free.
I don't understand it either, because if you want to join them in their talk show, you first have to download the talk show set. And what I also find interesting is that one of the things they are very proud of is that they are saying, it demonstrates the capabilities of the RiftMax theater software. And, theaters and cinemas and so many things that people are talking about right now that they are getting very excited over. We've got them in Second Life.
And you and everybody that I talk to would probably say that it is extremely immersive, although we're still dealing with mouse and keyboard and nobody likes to deal with it. That's not the question. But nonetheless, the immersive power of Second Life is there despite this distance between us and the content. So
it is like the wheel has just been invented and people are shouting, look, we've got a carriage and we're driving around in a T-Ford. People are reinventing things that are already there. What I don't understand and what irritates me is that people do something and they don't even know that it's already been done in Second Life. I mean, if they make this talk show and said, right, we tried it in Second Life and it was a mess, Fine, no problem with that. But they're saying, we're going to make this talk show and we're the first and it's new and it's brilliant. And they clearly don't know what's possible in Second Life.
Now we're talking like we're old and we're like, oh, we've done that 20 years ago. And I don't want to sound like that because...
But, you know, we're always coming back to the same thing. Second Life has a reputation problem. And I hope that Second Life is going to try really, really hard to get their Oculus Rift viewer working for everyone really, really quickly and really, really well. And then that they're going to grab a PR monster by the neck and all the way out on trying to make people understand they've got the goggles, we've got the world.
Well, we have to copyright that slogan ASAP. But first, a lot of questions will be answered. And I'm so excited because now we will listen to Yardley Linden, who is in charge of the Oculus implementation at Linden Lab. I can't say anymore. Just listen to this. It is a new day.
We are doing a full integration of Oculus Rift with Second Life. And by full, I mean we support the entire Second Life experience, building, chatting. Every bit of UI is accessible.
Wow.
Yardley, I can't tell you how exciting that really is. I was just going to ask, how the heck did you do this, the complex UI? Because everybody was speculating what will happen. Will a virtual keyboard appear out of nowhere? I mean, how do you control this thing when you don't see what you're doing?
I'll start with this. If you are an excellent touch typist, you will just fly. Obviously, you know, when you have a TV strapped to your face, it's kind of difficult to see the keyboard for those hunt and peck typers out there. We do not have a virtual keyboard. Users will find when they don their Oculus Rifts and go into World is a UI they're already very, very familiar with. In a nutshell, we took the present Second Life UI, projected that onto a three-dimensional space that follows you and hovers in front of you. And you can completely customize it as you can right now. It will be second nature to people who are already well-versed with the Linden Lab Viewer UI. There are obviously certain accommodations that need to be made as the UI is now working in a three-dimensional space as opposed to just your screen, right? So some of those accommodations are we allow the user to adjust the curvature, the size, the distance that UI projection is from your face. If you imagine the Iron Man movies, you know, when you look at him with the helmet on and you see the HUD elements, you know, kind of surrounding his face and just outside of his field of view, so he just kind of glances to the left or the right, up or down to get all the information he needs. Ours is very similar to that, and you can adjust that distance and the shape and the curvature of that projection plane.
I don't know what to say. I think I cannot leave the house before my Oculus arrives. I'm getting one shipped from a friend from Maine.
That's fantastic.
How long have you guys worked on this?
We started more or less late-ish August. We got everything up and running relatively fast. Up and running in the most minimal sense, in that, hey, you can put it on, you can look in the world. But then we're like, what's Second Life without building? What's Second Life without chatting? What's Second Life without, you know, all the things that people do, you know, and looking around and just being a tourist in the world, not being able to really interact with it. That's such a shallow experience.
Right. It almost sounds like one of those Oculus Rift demos that people are all up in arms. And Joe and I always talk about, are you guys kidding? Yeah, you got the goggles, but we have the world. We have an entire world.
Precisely. And as you guys know, it's immense, right? It's kind of more than a single person can really fathom, right? And so what's the world when you can't interact with the objects? You know, it became very clear to us we have to make this work, and we weren't going to just slapdash something together and get it out there just to be first. You know, we wanted to do it right. So it took us some time to do that. You know, and we discovered some interesting things along the way. I mean, and other game developers are going to be, and software developers are discovering this right now and wrestling with some of the issues that the Oculus Rift brings to bear. One that's what's kind of a little surprising is, all of a sudden, all those tricks you use to know where your cursor is at don't work anymore because you're dealing in proper 3D, right? So you have to write all new cursor management code. You don't necessarily think, the cursor is just sort of this given thing, right? I have a white little pointer and I click on the thing I want, but now all of a sudden the screen is not this flat 2D projection. It's 3D and it's living in a 3D world. And so, that was just one of the little complications one runs across when you're really exploring and integrating new hardware that just really changes the way you interact with these virtual spaces.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to try and imagine that, how it's going to work. Have you got a 3D cursor? Or
the thing we thought would be most comfortable for people is to hide the fact that the cursor is 3D. That from your perspective, you still want to just see the button and click on it. We have decades of that being the usual interaction paradigm, and it does work still. It's just the computer doesn't know where your cursor's at, and it took a while to figure out how to tell the computer where your cursor was at and make sure it was in the right place and clicking on the right button that it looks like you're on. So, so it works as it does in 2D, except it's 3D and you don't need to worry about it.
it's with almost every Oculus Rift thing that's out there at the moment, and the Oculus Rift itself, you don't really quite get it until you've tried it. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, as I was saying earlier, that people who are familiar and comfortable with the Second Life UI and how Second Life works will just, take to this no problem. There's not much of any kind of new learning curve for them to get over. It's you're in and running if you have a Rift.
Yardley, you were mentioning that the challenges of all of a sudden this whole paradigm shift. I mean, it applies to these other things too. I mean, Leap Motion are working to natively integrate SL. There are all these other devices coming on. What do you see on the horizon? I mean, I suppose now that you've done it once successfully, like you're describing, it sounds very exciting that you have already, when the next device comes on, or what else is out there, the Cast AR or the Avigant Glyph, I think. You have done already a lot of legwork, I suppose, that can be applicable to those, right?
Exactly, and that's the other thing, where we wanted to really embrace it as an opportunity to do that initial legwork to be able to support these things as they come online. That's not to say that there's any promises that we will, but it's not trivial. Each new hardware platform, great new opportunities, but also interesting and sometimes surprising problems that need to be solved. And with this particular integration, I feel we got our heads around at least some of those first sort of surprising problems for when you start to really develop things for 3D, which gets me to kind of a point of, moving ahead is the sort of thing where you need to be planning for it right from day one.
We have a bunch of questions from listeners, and Loki Elliott, a prominent, I call him experienced designer in SL, he's asking, is Yardley Linden seeing his role at the lab just the beginning of long-running road of adding APIs from emerging VR hardware innovations over the next decade?
Well, that would be a fun role to have.
I hope the boss is listening, right?
I'm not necessarily opposed. Like I said, no promises as to what we will or will not support. But hey, if the interest is there and the opportunity is there, hey, why not?
I mean, we personally, Joe and I think we're on the same page with this. That again, Second Life provides the richest virtual reality experience in existence today, in my opinion. So those hardware devices need to come on.
I share that opinion.
How important do you think that the board of directors of Linden Lab think the Oculus Rift or virtual reality in general is going to be?
Well, important enough to do the work. We definitely see it as an opportunity, and that's about all I can really say right now.
Loki is asking another question. People tend to view their avatars from a third person person. We like to see what our avatars are wearing, see them interacting, and so on and so forth. Let's see, where does he get to the question? In some ways, especially for me, this gives a disconnect. I'm watching my avatar, which I care for and like to see is having fun. How much does that sense of our avatars now change once we done the headset and we're I guess is what he's saying, because then you're essentially always in mouse look.
Well, that's what one would assume, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But that's not the case.
Ooh, you got so many goodies.
It's up to you.
This is like Christmas and Easter.
It is up to you. If you want to be in third person with your Rift on, we won't stop you. We support that. It looks fantastic, actually. There's a lot of benefit in being in third person. One, you get to see your avatar 3D, and you can really see the contours. You can really, really enjoy the face and the clothes, and you get to see them in a way you haven't seen them before. And all of a sudden, this old raggedy avatar takes on a new shiny, sexy sheen, when viewed through the Oculus Rift. I think I've gone up to avatars, just looked at them and just rotated around them with the Rift on. So this gets me to something that we thought was a real important thing to get right. We support third person view. We support a HMD optimized mouse look mode. Before I go, so we have a Rift optimized mouse look HMD mode, and we have a first person mode. So each of those really help you to take advantage of what the Rift allows you to do. So in third person, it's the third person you're familiar with, that you obviously seen Second Life from. The UI is there, your avatar is there. You can click on your avatar, you click on the world, your cursor's freed up, all that. In mouse look HMD mode, the mouse no longer affects your camera view. The buttons still work on it. There's still the little reticle in the center of the screen. And what this allows us to do is still support all the content, like the gaming content and the shooter content, any content that relied on mouse look specifically. That content will continue to behave more or less as it did before. And mouse look HMD relies on what we refer to as steer with your head to replicate some of the feel of using a mouse. So you can kind of look to the left or right, and that helps to steer you as you move, because that most closely maps to the mouse input. And then there's first person mode. First person mode is the camera is placed where your avatar's head would be. The UI is visible, and you have a cursor. So the UI can be hidden if you want a fully immersive view, but you still have a cursor, so you can you can click on objects and everything just as you would in third person mode. And what's fantastic about that first person mode is, by putting all the camera controls to the Rift, my mouse is free. I have a cursor. I can interact with the world, and it's great. And in that case, in first-person mode, your head does not steer. You look around, you can keep walking straight, look to your right, look to your left. It's like walking around in the real world, where you look and you walk where you walk. And sometimes they line up and sometimes they don't, depending on what you want to do and where you want to go.
Can you also build in that first-person view?
Yes, absolutely. You can build in all those modes.
Excellent. And this is going to change for everyone then, because the current mouse view doesn't allow very much options. And does this mean that we're going to get a lot more options in the general mouse look?
I would need to double check. So some of this stuff, like the certain mouse look behaviors, we tweak when there's an HMD detected, when the Rift is detected, and you can go into HMD mode, right? Mm-hmm. Head-mounted display mode. So I want to confirm, because you're right.
It would be very interesting. People.
First-person mode could be very useful for people without HMD. However, camera controls could be a little tricky there. Because what happens is your cursor is loose, right? It's no longer mapped to your camera.
Yeah.
Like it is in mouse look, because with the Rift is doing it for you, right? So I need to confirm that.
Technically, for people with the Oculus, there will be 3 ways to view Second Life: third person,
That's
first
correct.
person, and mouse look.
And first person is really my preferred. First person is my preferred mode, right? It's the most natural, because when you're walking around, in the world. You're walking straight, but sometimes you're looking to the left, you're looking to the right, and it allows you to explore Second Life in a way that just feels right from a physical standpoint.
What is the nausea issue that everybody's talking about?
No, never. Absolutely not. Those people are weak. No.
Well, you're the one who goes on some Six Flag Magic Mountain ride for 20 times in a row.
Exactly. I love roller coasters. The one where you not roller coaster, but the one where you spin around in the barrel and then the floor drops out. Yeah. Do that all day long. It's a combination of things, right? I mean, and from what we read, the next generation of hardware, which I have not tried, but reports say it helps to mitigate a lot of those nausea issues. And I think most people attribute it to the fact that the initial dev kit, and I think they're right with this, it doesn't support translation. It doesn't, motion track. It only tracks rotation. It knows kind of where you're pointing, or, and how you're rotating your head and what have you, but it doesn't know when you just kind of move side to side or forward or back. And so you're getting a lot of visual cues that go into your brain and say, hey, you're moving, but you're not always, like your body's moving, but what you're seeing doesn't always move in the exact same way. And that's where that motion tracking, being able to track the translation of the head-mounted display in space will help. And plus frame rate is a big deal too. So it's definitely recommended, like with all the Rift stuff, as everyone else recommends with the Rift, that you have a pretty beefy computer. That's not to say it won't work on a lower end machine, but for the optimum experience, as I'm sure you guys know, you need to have the hardware to do it.
Now, you opened this for beta. People who own a Rift, they can participate, and you sound really confident that this is already working. I mean, that's what I hear. What do you want to make any predictions when this is ready to go out of beta for everybody?
That really all depends, right? We're hoping to get some really great actionable feedback from the community of beta users, and depending on what kind of things fall out of that process, we'll see. It's something we want to do right. We're trying to stack, make sure that happens. So while I feel we're in a decent first step, this first release, we try to get things right. We know people are going to find things. We know our users are brilliant. They're very creative, and they're going to think of things we didn't think of, and they're going to make suggestions. We're like, oh God, why didn't we think of that? And then we're going to do our best to get that stuff in there and put our best foot forward with this.
Is there any? Here's another listener question. You Cello Poultry. Is the Mac experience different from the Windows experience?
On a fundamental level, no. We support the Mac. Beta is available for Mac. There are, there's some slight weirdness sometimes, the cursor and the God bar on the top of the Mac, but it's something, we're hoping to continue to improve on. But for the most part, it's the same.
She also says she wants a free headset, please. But I think you guys cannot comply with that.
We can't do too much about that. Neither can Oculus. Apparently, they're out of parts or something.
No, nobody can at this point.
The public has spoken. They want their TVs on their face.
On a personal level, are you sharing this sort of with your friends outside who may have whatever opinion they may have about Second Life? Do you tell them, you guys wait until you can actually walk into the world that we have? You're going to be, it's going to be knocking your socks off?
Normal people.
Normal people, right? Not crazy enthusiasts.
I'm flattered that you'd think I'd have some friends outside the lab, so I appreciate that.
Well, we don't. That's why we ask you.
I might mention that, hey, that Rift thing, I tried that. It's pretty cool. Lots of potential.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly the first time I ever put on a VR headset, and it was like back in the early 90s. You remember that arcade game, that Tactile Nightmare, with that 20-pound CRT thing they'd strap to your head and going around, walking around that virtual world with that funky joystick lobbing those little grenades at the one other person that was in the world with you. I think the whole world was probably rendered with about 500 polys, but so I've been keeping my eye on this stuff forever. It's so exciting to see. It's like kind of really happening now.
It's funny because earlier we were making fun of a product called the Virtual Boy from Nintendo. Came out in '95 and I think only lived for a year. There's a really funny review video on YouTube from the Angry Video Game Nerd.
The product, originally dubbed VR32, would become known as the Virtual Boy. Virtual reality seemed like the way of the future. Just the idea of feeling like you were in the game was an awesome concept. But instead, it turned out to be the grand motherlode of First problem was that it was marketed as a portable system. Yeah, portable. My is portable. You could barely find a comfortable way to play this big red ugly piece of at home, let alone bring it somewhere. Like you couldn't play in a car or something like that. And come to think of it, you wouldn't want to play this thing in public anyway. You'd look like an
And in the review, the guy straps it on his head with a duct tape.
I'm familiar with the Virtual Boy. I remember seeing them in the mall kiosks as a kid and walking by them and trying them on, trying it out, and like, how many games are there? Like Mario Tennis in red,
Well, but they had Waterworld.
Waterworld on Virtual Boy. It's like puking on a pile of Well, as far as the graphics go, too bad they couldn't use the color blue. I mean, they had two choices for the water. It could have been red or black. Well, at least they chose black, because if it was red, we'd be calling it Blood World.
It does look like.
And that's, of course, Dennis Hopper from Waterworld in the review of Virtual Boy from the Angry Video Game Nerd. And obviously, apart from the fact that the Oculus quality is a lot better, it just didn't have a strap to strap on your face. I mean, the most basic thing, right?
I always heard about people who would lay on a couch. They'd lay down and just set it on their face.
The time was not right. It's funny that the reviewer says at the very end of his review, he says,
Now, it's been about 10 years. The technology's gotten better, but nobody really gives a about virtual reality anymore. And maybe that's for the best.
And it's so fascinating that he came up with that review, I think, in 2008, and how things really changed. I mean, it's really, the term is not a derogatory term anymore.
It does look like the trend. That is the trend. We shall see.
This Linden Lab sort of preparing or thinking about creating a little test area or a showcase area for when everyone else is going to buy the Oculus Rift and going to try Second Life, that they've got this first place where they can go where things are of a proper scale, for instance, things like that. Because I built one for the few people who are already with the Oculus Rift, and I was wondering if Linden Lab is planning an official one.
What we are doing is, we've kind of gone around the world and created a list, a destination guide of places we think just look fantastic with the Oculus Rift, because Second Life is about what our residents make, not necessarily about what we make.
Oh, that's a good idea. A special Oculus Rift destination guide section. And is Second Life preparing a lot of special public relationship thingies or advertisement, things like that, regarding the Oculus Rift?
Again, not necessarily opposed. I don't think we're as an organization necessarily opposed to that. It's just it's still early. I mean, there's no date yet for when a retail kit will be available. We don't know how much a retail kit will be when the time is right and if the opportunity is right. Who knows?
There's a mixer from the Road to VR blog guys in San Francisco, March 20th. You guys have to go there, please, or I'm going. Just tease them a little bit. Tell them again. I mean, yeah, you guys have a roller coaster demo, but we got a whole world full of roller coasters.
Exactly. Second Life is particularly well suited for the Rift. Second Life is, it's kind of ambient in a lot of ways. They're very active things, but it's not a fast twitch shoot 'em up, right? Well, there is that in some places, but, you know, we're installation art, we're environments, we're experiences, you know, and where immersion and just being there and being, you know, getting that kind of sensory input, you know, the sights and the sounds and just taking it in and being in a space. I mean, that's so much of Second Life, and the Rift just works so well in that kind of context, you know. As I was saying earlier, the idea of, you build for this right from day one kind of speaks well to the, you know, kind of the early thoughts and the early priorities of Second Life, that it works as well as it does with the Rift now, you know, because in a way, Second Life was always built for this. It was like built with this hardware in mind. The hardware didn't exist yet. And that is fantastic to finally see it come. We just need to convince all the people who are, you know, working with the Oculus that, you know, we are their best sort of marriage.
Widely, we're very grateful for your time. And I couldn't agree with you more, especially the contemplative nature of Second Life, just wandering around and experiencing it. I hope Peter is taking notes, because I would use that as a marketing slogan.
You can make a very romantic sort of advertisement, you know, Second Life and Oculus Rift.
Don't give him any ideas, Joe.
Meant to be together. A marriage made in heaven.
Yeah, that's right. We will see.
So that was Widely Linden. We apologize for the audio quality. Skype is not always stable. Second Life is a lot more stable. But Joe, that's pretty exciting, what he has to tell us here.
Absolutely. I mean, they really thought about it.
I can't contain myself.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we've been complaining about, you know, what's taking them so long. And I think we now know they wanted to have a properly working viewer. And I am quite surprised that it sounds like they've fixed a lot of the problems, and, you know, that you can already build with it is fantastic. It means
it is.
It sounds like they're very close to releasing it.
And one can only imagine the challenges. I mean, I applaud them for really being patient and not being too sort of driven, as it sounds to me, by what we said earlier in the show about, oh, is it too late? Is it, you know, everybody's coming online with stuff. I applaud that confidence that they have a product, in other words, an entire universe, that when it works properly with the devices that are coming online, it will be the place where you want to be.
Yeah, this is going to turn a few heads, and I hope that people who are not very much into Second Life but will be lured back into Second Life because they've got the Oculus will be impressed. I love the idea of the destination guide.
That is a great idea. Well, I will go back to Pamela here from 2 shows ago. Remember the interview with our skeptic from the local sheet music store? When I have the Oculus, I'm going to force her to log into a live quilting session in SL, and then we'll see what she says.
I think we all have to, everyone in Second Life has to force random people to visit Second Life with an Oculus headset. Just on the street, grab them.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will not get arrested when you strap some ski goggles on an unsuspecting passenger. No, but I definitely think that this will also, I mean, it's going back to your thing about coming out of the virtual closet, which I really believe is a strong point that cannot be overstated, because the more we communicate outward, not only how great it is, but all sorts of benefits just by sharing snapshots, videos and such. But now when the Oculus comes online and we have one laying around, visitors come in, you know, tell them, check this out. It's better than watching My Fair Lady for the 100th time.
You know, what a lot of people don't seem to understand yet is that, especially for Oculus Rift users, Second Life is the ultimate tool. I mean, it is a sandbox that you can easily share with a lot of other people, and where you have so much freedom and fantastic wind light settings, and you can start playing. You know, if you don't want to visit other worlds, or if you don't want to do all the virtual hanky-panky or whatever you think Second Life is, you don't have to. You know, it is such a creative place. And, you know, if you have an Oculus Rift and if you get the viewer, you have to just try it, because there's so many options. It's really funny that everybody's talking about Rift-made games or games made for Rift, or the killer app for Rift, you know, the Eve Valkyrie and whatever it is. And I'm not going to knock these games. I'm sure they're really awesome. I mean, I love
a sci-fi game as anyone else. But I would maintain that the killer app for any one of these devices is our beloved digital universe. There's no question in my mind. And going back to the Rift Max guys, and I don't mean to knock him, but again, virtual talk show, right? You go to Marketplace, you buy a TV studio off the shelf, and you put your people down there, and boom, you have your virtual talk show. I mean, come on.
You spend an afternoon and built your own studio. Or not even a studio, do it on the beach.
On the beach.
In the air.
In a spaceship. Yep.
Like you just don't care.
In a brothel. Sorry, I'll cut that.
Get your head out of the gutter.
Yeah, I have to perpetuate the cliche if nobody else does.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, we got to end it when it's the most fun. We're running out of time. Joe, what are you doing over the weekend? You're time traveling again, I suppose?
Yes, I'll be visiting. Inara Pay blogged about this really impressive installation, that's what I'll call it, where you can visit Hieronymus Bosch painting, and I don't know if you know it, but he's a medieval Dutch artist, and it's an installation at LEA 12 by Theo Sykes, not quite sure how you pronounce it, but he's an artist in Second Life, and he's sort of recreated the world of Hieronymus Bosch, who sort of makes the most weird and disturbing paintings that I can remember, and it's I'm really going to enjoy that.
Wow, it's almost like virtual reality.
Yeah, almost.
Almost. It's not quite Rift Max. Oh, they're going to hate us so much. All right, so I forgot earlier to say that it's the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, and it runs till March 21st, and I hope so much that SL folks show up there, Linden Lab folks show up there, and on March 20th, the folks from Road to VR blog also have a mixer where you can show up. And maybe SL folks who live in San Francisco, I can't go. I live fairly close, but I can't go. Folks should really go there and tell them who's boss. Huh?
Yeah, and with a bit of luck, Oculus VR may be announcing some interesting news at the Game Developers Conference.
I want Linden Lab to announce amazing news. That's what I want.
Yeah.
All right. Relay for Life is going on. The arcade is going on. I've been there with SL Go, and it was actually awesome. I got a little stuck, but then I got in there, so check that out. SL Go, we have some news next week about that too. Whatever you may think of it, I would really, really suggest you try the demo, but we have some news next week. We'll go out today with Mile Fresky, who provided our station ID and who is sending me her Oculus Rift, a loaner, so I can try it. It's awesome. She runs the Four Bridges project in Second Life, and she has some great stories about how to deal with adolescent troublemakers in digital worlds. In other words, griefers. No, but listen to it. It's great.
I can feel a few episodes with that.
She has an approach that maybe we can learn from, because some of them may just need a hug. So here's Mile Fresky, and goodbye, folks, and I'll talk to you next week. Joe, bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Four Bridges is a flexible, organic community. It's a place for people to come and express themselves. I have it open for everyone. And when we do get the griefers, I IM them. I don't ban them. I don't freeze them. I talk to them. And the conversation usually is very one-sided. Sometimes I can get 10 IMs in. Sometimes I get 200 IMs in before I get a response. But I always get a response. And when I do, I just talk to them like they're human beings, and it's great. I think you should come clean up your mess. Just come clean it up. And 9 out of 10 times they do. I never give anyone prim limits. That's the funny thing too. The minute I set prim limits, we run out of prims. If I don't have any prim limits, we've always got 3,000 or 4,000 for the SEM. Always. All of my griefers are now working for me. They make scripts, so they donate their time and their energy. Once I got an email from Widget Whiteberry. She helps out with the Virtually Speaking. Great woman. I'm very fond of her. Virtually Speaking is a talk show. They interview live guests, and it's also done in Second Life. And Widget sent me an IM and said, look, we had a griefer. He had 4 bridges in his group, so I'm sure he was building there. And I said, okay, I'll take care of it. I'll talk to him. He and I spoke for a while. Turns out he lived 40 miles down the road from me in real life. Yep. Anyway, what he did, he had a prem that if anyone said freeze, eject, ban, kick, all of those negative things, it would shoot out more particles, and it eventually crashed the SIM. And all you had to do, all anyone had to say to turn that off was to say hello to him. That was the only thing. And you had to say hello in chat, and it would have turned it off. And I thought, what an excellent creative mind to come up with something like that. And what does that say? You know, we're supposed to be this altruistic kind of group, and we can't say hello. I do try to harness that energy and their creativity, giving them an outlet for their creativity. And, you know, remember when you were 17? It's like, what, I went to 12 years of school, and now I have to come out and get a job and be like an adult? And they're rebelling. They have a lot they want to say, and they need a place to express it.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Caravel Design, Joey Abama, Rag Media, Vika Creations, Ziki Questy, Escapades, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Ciaran Laval, and Mona Eberhard. Special thanks to Millet Fresky for providing the station ID this week. Contact the show via Skype DraxFiles, Avatar DraxFiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.
Nobody really gives a shit about virtual reality anymore.
And maybe that's for the best.